Adjustment is hereby called to order for its regularly scheduled meeting of February 21st, 2024. I'm Chairman of the Board. Mr. Jeffrey Penzis serves as Secretary of the Board. Mr. Penzis, may I get a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Ms. Baker.
Here.
Ms. Bostic.
Here.
None. If the record show that Vice Chair Savage Towns is here. Mr. Secretary, if you could provide us with the Secretary's report, if there is one this month, and then explain the procedure for today's meeting.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. As for a Secretary's report, there are no announcements this afternoon. The procedure for this meeting will be as follows. I will introduce each case as listed on the agenda. Copies of the agenda can be found at the front podium. For each case, the planner with the Division of Planning and Development will give a presentation. At the conclusion of the staff presentation, the applicant will have 5 minutes to present his or her case. After the applicant's presentation, those speakers in support will have a total of 5 minutes, and then those speakers in opposition will have a total of 10 minutes. And finally, the applicant will have 2 minutes to provide rebuttal. These times do not include time for questions from and answers to members of the board. The chairman may provide additional time provided both sides are given an equal the public hearing pursuant to the board's rules of procedure. Please note that once the public hearing is reopened, both the applicant and opposition will be allowed to provide additional testimony and/or rebuttal. All motions made by this board will be made in the affirmative. The private acts governing the board require an affirmative vote of at least 5 members to approve an application, regardless of the number of board members present. The board may also vote to hold an application for a period of not to exceed 3 months with the consent of the applicant or 1 month without the consent of the applicant. All section numbers we refer to come from the Memphis and Shelby County Unified Development Code, or the UDC, which was adopted by the Memphis City Council and Shelby County Board of Commissioners in August of 2010 and became effective on January 1st, 2011. I will introduce the entire UDC and make it part of today's record, thus dispensing with the reading of individual sections. The board is vested with the power to act on these cases before us today under the provisions of Chapter 9.22 of the UDC. Mr. Chairman, I submit that all cases have been filed 2023-0161, 6841 Center College Road as a 1-month hold. Item number 9, BOA 2023-0166, 3141 Ferris View Road as a 1-month hold. Item number 10, BOA 2024-0002 at 11-300.
Is the applicant here on? Okay, I didn't see, I'm sorry. And then is there any opposition? Perfect, okay. If we could get a brief staff report from Mr. Howell, and then I'll let you come up and give your presentation. Okay, thank you.
This case is BOA 23-0132. The applicant is Laurel Oaks Town Homes Subdivision. The representative is Miss Susan Caldwell, who is present today. Location represented here is 4650 Laurel Oaks Street. The request for this application is based upon 2 references within our Unified Development Code. These are a variance to those 2 references that allows less than the required queuing space, and along South Perkins. Zoning, so this is significantly surrounded by multifamily housing. So here's an aerial image of that development. This development came online in around 1981. So the site plan that was submitted to us, this captures kind of what this is really an older survey, but it does capture the ingress egresses of the two locations there. This is actually oriented north, is pointing to your right. So there were several factors that went into what we will share as far as our conclusions. The first one is the design findings. So up against the security gates. So when we looked at design findings, we had to look at what does the vehicle to satisfy that queue space without encroaching upon the right-of-way or the sidewalk in this case. The table to the right is actually cited from AASHTO on what that length car is. Another factor is the roadway functional classification. This is very significant because the Unified Development Code, it does call out like what type of of this case is traffic volume. I did want to reference what some of the technical details are that following. Major collector generators, which are which come from Walnut Grove Road and Poplar Avenue. Old item there, 6158. This is the subject property segment that we're talking about today. I decided that I would try and look at what are other comparable AEDT numbers that stack up against this. There are two numbers that are in asterisks, and those are actually considered other principal arterials, which means characteristically they are the roads that feed into these major collectors. Even some of their AEDTs are the same, are similar, which shows the potential growth for demand on this. Variance, this development would had required a 40 feet queue space depth. They're requesting for 19. Also, not just based upon the classification of the roadway, but also based upon the number of development units, they fit well within the 0 to 150 units, but based upon the UDC, they must have a 40 feet queue space depth. So the conclusions to this, the subject urban affected parcels do not meet the minimum setback from the streets as far as current requirements. In lieu of not meeting the setback regulations, the code allows for a variance to be considered to support the installation of two gates proposed at 19 feet from inside of right-of-way. These affected townhomes are, as we mentioned, they are located in a high traffic area, surrounded by similar developments, all of which have controlled access. The applicant is seeking relief from subsections 448A and 448C of the Unified Development Code to allow the installation of security gates across the entrance of South and North Laurel Oak Street. And the final conclusion, this allows the variance that would help avoid future concerns associated with break-ins and thefts within the subject properties, Laurel Oak Street South and North, that provides those egress access easements that serve as private driveways to the individual townhouse units. Now, based upon the findings that I presented to you,
He may.
Okay, then let me
I told
do
him
it.
he could butt in. So.
Good. If you could give both y'all's names for the record and your addresses, then I'll swear y'all both in.
Okay, my name is Susan Caldwell. I am at 4650 Laurel Oaks.
Okay.
And it is Laurel Oaks South.
Okay.
Not a family type development. There's no playgrounds, there's no amenities, there's no swimming pool, there's none of those kind of things. And it's been that way since the inception of the property. Right now we have 2 empty nesters, and one of them is a high schooler. '65 to 90-year-old group, and I fit in that. So, next slide. Our main concern, yes, we've talked to you about our property, and obviously we are concerned about that, but our main concern is our safety. We'd like to stick property stolen out of the carports. They've jumped over the back fences into the private patios. We had one woman running up and down the street late at night, banging on the door, terrorized us all. I don't know if she must have been, not right in some way. And then we have trespassers who hide out in the little garden spaces between the buildings that I mentioned. It's not only violated our space, but it's really messed up our sense of security and destroyed our peace of mind. It's changed our lifestyles. We just don't come in after dark, because while you're trying to get in your house, someone could shoot you. And I'm not exaggerating. We've had shootings across the street in the parking lot at White Station. Harold is the vice principal, I believe I'm right over there. He can talk to you more about that. There will be people in there that may be okay and may not be, but it has made us change our lifestyle. So we stay home and we get home before dark. Next slide. These are all the things we have tracked. The neighborhood watch that's done here in the city, we've established that. Every single house has the 24/7 monitored security. And let me tell you, that doesn't help. It takes about 15 minutes after they've broken in your door that goes over to Perkins Extended. People have ring.coms, closed circuit cameras. Those don't work either, because they can reach up. Hurt or killed in the paper. Okay, let's go to the next one. As Eric said, there are 7 multifamilies on our street towards Poplar Avenue, and we're the only one that don't have uncontrolled access. And could do with PowerPoint, would be where we could dogleg that part of the gate, but you can see the post where the blue arrow is pointing and where the gentleman is standing. And that would block the access to that side of that person's carport. The car and the gate. The next one on the down shows you that that would be about the position that the call box would be in. Now, the owners are not going to be using the call box. We'll have a remote like you open your garage door with. We would execute that, and it would, the gates would be open almost by the time we pulled up and went in. And then in that same position, I just walked around my car, that picture in the middle at the top. That's how the part the tape measure winds up in. And at the blue arrow is pointing to where the car that is 19.75 feet would be sitting on the sidewalk. Not in the street and not over the entire sidewalk. And it does not block the sidewalk. And it does not extend into the street. Next slide, please. So this is Perkins. That is my car.
The gates you're talking about, how are they going to open? Are they going to be a side to
They're going
side?
to open, all right, so if this is a fence right here, which it would be, they will open back against that fence to the inside.
Okay, so
Yeah.
if you're inside, ready to go out, you can only pull so far up.
Correct.
Wait for the gate to get out of your
And
way.
we'd
But
have
as
to
far
wait
as
for the gate to open and then
a lot then, but.
Right, but
other
the rest of
times,
the
it's not.
day,
I
it's
walk
about
and-
like that.
Yeah, and I cross the street and don't have to wait very long. And also, I'll note that when it is a high-traffic area and people are coming from Walnut Grove or from Poplar, they use Colonial, which is the road right behind it, which is not a connector street. And if we were located on Colonial, we would not be standing here today because it would have been approved because it's not a connector street. And so we're in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right, yeah. I've noticed too, like my kids go to White Station, but like I will skip Shady, that part of Perkins that I used to not skip now that I have to hit all those speed bumps, once you go south of Shady Grove. So I just didn't know if that was just me or if you noticed other people doing the same. Are there other questions?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Is there, I couldn't get from the depth perception, is there room for the side to side gate or maybe like a single gate to slide back?
No, we can't have a slider. It's gonna, because we don't own the property next to us. Those are also multifamilies.
Gotcha.
So
start out if you want me to. I guess the way I look at this is that I agree with the staff that it's not an ideal situation out there as far as putting gates in, but I do think it meets the regulations, the standards for the Board of Adjustment because
All right. I assume y'all are ready to vote. If Mr. Secretary, if you'll give us a roll call, please.
Mr. Claybrook,
Yes.
Ms. Bostic. Baker. Ms. Baker,
yes.
Ms. Scurlock,
Yes.
Mr. Bruce,
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Towns.
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDC of 9.22.6 are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
and Chair Ray.
Yes. All right, congrats. You'll have a great day. Mr. Secretary, will you call our next case?
Item number 2, BOA 2023-0140 at 3341 Poplar Avenue.
Okay. Is the applicant present for this case? All right, I see that. And is there, I have some opposition right here. Thank you very much. All right. Ms. Cobbs, if you'll give us a brief staff report, please.
Oh,
that's
there
okay.
we go. I'm rebooting the computer really quick. So
Okay, no
we'll
problem.
Get it going, sorry.
All right, yeah, that's good. Helps when there's no opposition.
So this is a request for variances at 3341 Poplar Avenue. Applicant in order to revise the site plan. Uh, 0.5 acres, and it's at the southeast corner of Poplar Avenue and Alexander Street. So it's marked in orange, surrounded by office land uses and commercial, and then you have residential to the south, and that's the Joffrey neighborhood. We seem to be having a lag. Okay, so aerial view, this shows the parking lot. Well, it's a vacant lot, and so it appears that it's currently being used kind of like for overflow parking for the property that is to the east, but it's totally vacant. And these are views of the site. These are on-site views of the property, looking south and then also looking east. And in the picture where you're looking east, that is the other office next door where it seems that the overflow parking may be coming from. And here are some views from Alexander Street, from across the street, and the view of the property is to the northeast. And then another on-site view looking west along Poplar Avenue. So this is the site plan. This is a proposed Chipotle restaurant with a drive-through. It's a little over 2,500 square feet, I believe is the square footage of the building. So right in here where my cursor is, this is the building. It does front or face Poplar. And so there's an entrance onto Poplar, which per the Transit Overlay District is required. And then there's another entrance, side street entrance to Alexander Street. And the drive-through, which is a pickup So the drive-through really is only if you have a reservation, I guess, for lack of a better way to describe it, then you would pull up to the pickup window and you would pick up your reserved order. So then we also have the parking spaces that are to the south of the property. So the request is for the side street elevation to the west here. So we have required, per our Unified Development Code, that there's at least 35 building frontage requirement. And then the other variance is that they're wanting to utilize 17 parking spaces on site, and per the code, you can't exceed the 110% maximum. And that is based on the required parking, which for this site, 11 parking spaces would be required. And so that 17 exceeds that 110% maximum. Here's a view of the landscaping that is proposed. The landscaping is proposed all around or throughout the perimeter of the lot. So you have to the north and to the west, there's landscaping 8 feet, I believe that is proposed, and then 10 feet to the south, which abuts the single-family residential. 5 feet is proposed to the east. So to conclude, the applicant is seeking relief in order to allow that less than the required side street a special use permit request for the drive-through restaurant. Because this site is within our transit overlay district, the required building frontage and setbacks are regulated by the urban frontage standards, and there is that they're unable to meet that building, the side street building frontage because of the placement of the outdoor dining. We did communicate quite a bit with the applicant to have this site plan that has been presented there was a different site plan that was previously submitted with the application back in December, either November or December. But working with them, we now have this site plan that we are recommending approval of the variance request with these conditions as listed. And they actually go on to the second page. So there are 9 conditions that we're recommending if this is approved. And that concludes my presentation. Prior to the staff report being completed, there was 1 letter of opposition submitted, and that is also attached within the staff report. And I am happy to answer any questions.
I have a quick question. As far as the parking regulation, not wanting more than the 110%, what, is there a purpose of why that, we always fight about not having enough parking?
Inside of this restaurant? Do people sit down to eat in there, or is it just totally drive-through?
I believe that there will be some indoor seating. I mean, I'll defer to the applicant on that.
Okay, I'll wait
We
and
would
get
need
the answer from
to,
them.
if this is approved, go through the administrative site plan review, which building elevations would be submitted with that, and additional information would be provided, with their site plan.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before we move to the applicant? All right, the applicant will come forward and state your name and address for the record.
John McCarty with McCarty Granberry Engineering, 198 Progress Road in Collierville, Tennessee.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead and share with us.
Thank y'all for your time, and Kendra staff report is very accurate. The first question was there will be indoor dining, very similar to it's a typical size Chipotle, so I think 20 to 25 seats inside would be regular, plus the outdoor seating as well. The outdoor seating is part of the cause for one of the variance requests. With having it on the west side of the building, we think it's the most appropriate place to put it from a viewscape standpoint. And that combined with the funky shape of the property doesn't allow us to completely get the building up against that property line.
Is it covered?
It is not covered.
Not covered, okay.
They may have some proposed, if we get to the next stage where we do the submit the site plan,
Right.
We may have some awnings or something. The drive-through window was discussed accurately. It's only a pre-order window, like a pickup. So there's not a menu board. You don't order and queue in line, and so you don't I think the app tells you when you're hey, your order's ready now. Pull up to the window. So it's not like you'll have a normal queuing experience with that. But if y'all have got any other questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? How much time do we have left? You have 8 minutes left, which you can just reserve for rebuttal if you need to.
We'll reserve it and hopefully
Okay.
not use it.
All right. Very good. Okay. I have some opposition here. Do y'all want me to just call a name, or do you have a? Yeah, if the opposition wants to come down front.
Poor visibility due to the hill on Poplar to the west. And Alexander is a residential street, just so you know. It's, the Chipotle will butt up against a residential home, and also Birthright, which is a pregnancy advocacy business, is across the street. So that would be for Reese as well, Palisade and Holmes. So we are cut through between Central and Poplar Avenue. We have a lot of traffic that comes between the two streets to get from, Central to Poplar and Poplar to Central. The request for a variance in building frontage appears to be driven by the applicant's desire to add a drive-through lane, which our neighborhood opposes. This variance, along with others requested, would allow a larger and busier land use than the parcel could sustain under the current zoning. Granting the variances would enable more intense development along our neighborhood, leading to increased noise, traffic on our streets, and of course on Poplar, which is a nightmare in that area if you've ever been there during peak times. And it'll also have other negative impacts in our neighborhood, such as increased crime, which my family has experienced firsthand. 2 of our cars have been vandalized, and my son, my 23-year-old, was carjacked in our driveway at gunpoint. There are several studies that actually show that a link to greater availability to fast food restaurants to higher crime rates. In conclusion, I respectfully request that you deny the approval of these variances for the proposed Chipotle drive-thru. A neighborhood's quality of life and safety are at stake, and we believe that approving this permit would set a detrimental precedent for future developments in our area. The Joffrey neighborhood has historic significance to Memphis. In addition, in 2001, the Joffrey neighborhood was deemed eligible for the National Register registry listing because 82% of the homes in Joffrey maintained their architectural integrity. Unfortunately, we didn't receive that honor, but that doesn't negate
This is a vacant site right now, right?
it is, ma'am.
Do you remember what was there before?
I've only lived in the neighborhood for 6 years. John,
Just
I
for
think that
breaks.
John knows.
Just for breaks.
Are we, yeah, sorry, we can't, you can't talk from the audience. It's just not.
I think
I appreciate
just
it.
for
Just-
breaks
yeah,
is
just
what
for
I'm
breaks,
hearing, just
but-
for breaks. It was
I
some sort
don't
of
know. Yeah.
auto repair.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I just have one other question. What would you like to see there if,
We are not opposed to something being built in that area at all. What we would love to see is something that operated from the hours of 8 to 5, like regular business hours. Right now, the Chipotle is going to be operating until 11 at night in a residential area. Also, another concern is I know Chipotle is a fast food, like they are a healthy food, fast food restaurant, and they don't have refrigerators in their business. So they have to get fresh fruit or fresh food delivered multiple times a week. So it will be refrigerated freight trucks that will have to be delivering this food. And I don't know that the site can hold those big trucks, so they will have to park on the residential parking in front of either Birthright or in front of residential homes to deliver that product to the restaurant. It's a huge concern for us. So it's really hard to see traffic when you're when you're going out onto Poplar that is coming up over that hill. And there's a taco So I can't even get in the turn lane because the person coming this way is face to face with me in the turn lane. So we will. So
30-day hold to allow other residents to voice their concerns. Volunteers in the neighborhood, we packed together to spread awareness of this developers meeting on the 27th. In a mere 72 hours, we heard concerns from other neighbors with 40 petitions. That being for Holmes, Palisade, Joffrey, Alexander, Reese, because all those neighbors will be impacted by this. Among other concerns, we would like to preserve this as a residential area and not being commercial. As a resident to this area, I've seen many concerns or many accidents on Poplar, people trying to turn out. There's a hill, as Stephanie alluded to. It is a very dangerous intersection. I live on Alexander Street, and I often try to avoid going out on Poplar. I'll go to Central, to Highland, and around. Thank you for considering our concerns and helping us preserve our neighborhood. Lastly, I would say that I can think of a lot of others. I'm not opposed to the company as a whole, but I can think of a lot of other locations that are more suitable for this type of traffic, including on Highland that could even be appealing to University of Memphis. But that's just my own opinion.
All right. Any questions for Mr. McCallum? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, if the applicant will come back up and offer any rebuttal they may have.
Don't have much to say. We do think we'd be a better neighbor than most uses can be. Chipotle is not a true fast food restaurant with the same volumes that you would see with a McDonald's or a Chick-fil-A. It's a fast casual. That has a much lower use. Obviously, having as many parking spots would actually address some of their concerns as far as parking on the street. And if y'all have got any other questions, we'll try to answer them.
Would having 11 parking spots prevent Chipotle from using could make Chipotle not even build there to begin with? It's like it's a little bit of a circle going on what's going to happen. So, other questions?
for us right now, but we are asking to approve something that would, move it to the next arena. And then the second part of it is but then secondly, I just don't agree with this site plan because of its incompatibility with the neighborhood that's right to the south. And I just want to say one other thing, that this is kind of like Midtown. Anyway, those are my thoughts on it.
So let me just add, so your concerns are that the entrance into the property is at the rear of the property near the residential area. So I'm trying to figure out how you would fix it. I wonder if on the site plan, if they move the building back, toward the back of the lot and put the entrance
That wouldn't
up
conform
front.
with transit overlay.
Yeah, they gotta be fronted up.
That would,
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Collins.
so with it being in the transit overlay district, it's required to be a certain setback.
Close to the
So, and then with the outdoor dining, you're allowed a setback between 7 and 20 feet. If there weren't outdoor dining, then the building would need to be pushed.
Sees the 11,
And that
that's
side
limit.
setback.
And then side setback for the,
I guess it's called.
right, I see, for the outdoor eating, okay.
I mean, we could, does the board wish to hear anything else? Yeah, we're in discussion, so we would have to, if we need 5
No,
people.
but I mean, do we need to hear?
No, only if 5 people want to.
Okay.
The same, I'll just say for me, the number of parking spaces puts a lot of parking on that.
Yeah, so that, and I'm thinking out loud, so bear with me. With the parking spaces, if we
other fast food restaurants literally around there, because you do have, you know, like the Starbucks, the Taco Bell. There's,
Crystal, is
there's
Crystal
a
still there?
Crystal's.
Here's my question. My question is the drive
I mean, one issue is traffic, but, you know, I think, you know, with a bigger parking lot, it looks like there's, even if the
can be further to the north, more thick landscaping along the south line. It still puts the and I think there's a better site plan that would work better for everybody. Just not the one we're looking at right now.
If I may.
Yes, ma'am.
So the review based on the transit overlay district and the urban frontage standards, the site plan meets everything. The only thing that is not being met through engineering, through the traffic division, and it's possible that traffic engineering would want that entry onto the lot farther from Poplar, as far away as possible. So I just wanted to make those points.
It sounds like, first of all, I don't think anybody has any objection to the the setback violation to the outdoor eating being over the setback lines. So that's not the issue. The issue that's before us is some parking. And I think that having more parking spaces as opposed to less is, it takes traffic, it reduces the chance there'll be traffic on the street, interfering with the neighborhood. So on that issue, I think it probably is better for the neighborhood to have the 17 parking spaces as opposed to the 11. And that's the only issue I think that we're really trying to consider here.
I agree. And given the two businesses that are on either side, the one where they're using the empty lot to park, which they have done a great job of discouraging with the diagonal spots on that side. So they're discouraging that overflow parking. But on the other side, there's nothing to say that a person visiting the business next door, the Birthright, I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but the
It was Birthright.
Birthright,
Yeah.
okay, the Birthright Center. Someone visiting there would park in the Chipotle, go visit Birthright, come get some Chipotle, and keep on going. And it keeps them from parking on the street. The extra spot would actually help the overflow of inevitable parking that's gonna happen on that spot.
Well, I just want to make the point that, yes, it's true that the parking in excess of what is allowed in transit overlay is technically the only issue before us. But when we approve any application, we approve a site plan at the same time. And so this site plan is before us too. And I don't believe, I think there's a better site plan. Like it is. And so I just think there's nothing wrong with at least considering what kind of site plan is it that we're approving next to the neighbors. And
Do I want to go against the transportation thing on how much parking should be allowed for a business? I actually don't have a problem with the site plan. You know, I don't know if Mr. McCallum was right next to it, but he bought a property right next to commercial, where commercial stuff was going to happen. It's not like we're given a variance where it's a residential lot, we're turning to commercial. That's what it was. So I don't think I'm worried by that. I'm worried by just the overall, not the impact on that neighbor, but the impact on the street of whether or not allowing the parking is going to help that or hurt that. Something makes me think if I have to just decide one way or the other, if we don't allow it, Chipotle still builds there. And if so, I'd rather have given them the parking. If I thought that not allowing the parking would prevent them from building that there, then I think I would be okay with saying no. But I don't know that that's the case. So I think I'm going to take the lesser of the evil, which is more allowing the more parking. I know it was a long way to get there, but. I don't think we can put that on the current landowner of like, well, somebody over there used to park there, and that's gonna, maybe there's gonna be people on Alexander because of that. If I'm Chipotle, I'm like, don't park in our lot. You can't park all day and that, and they probably will have to police that, but I don't know if that's that landowner's problem. Any other?
Yes. Ms. Gerlach?
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Towns?
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDC of 9.22.6 are being met and will not be unduly detrimental.
And Chair Rainey?
I'm going to have to vote yes, I think.
Motion carries.
Okay. Thank you all for coming down today. Mr. Penzis, we call our next case.
Item number 6, BOA 2023-0130. At 3324 Keystone Avenue.
Okay, is the applicant present today? Okay, see you there. And is there any opposition here? I know that
Sure, I can answer that question. I'll give a brief staff report first. So this is basically a variance to waive our general locational requirements for group daycares that they be within 150 feet of an arterial road. So here's a location map. We're in Raleigh. Plus or 5 to 12 is considered a group daycare home, which is a principal use. The state treats it a little differently. And the state, when I say the state, I mean the regulations for daycares, right? They will allow up to 7 in a home-based situation. So what that means is that if Ms. Weber wants to keep 7 children as she's allowed to under state rules, she needs 2 zoning entitlements. One is this variance to waive the locational requirements, and the second is an SUP because a group daycare is a SUP use in the R6 district. Zoning map, we're in R6, mostly single family is the surrounding land uses. Here's some site photos. Here are our conclusions. Essentially that if this variance plus the SUP that she'll need to apply for is granted, the practical effect would be to raise the maximum number of children allowable for a home occupation. Emergency and she needs to take one of the kids to the doctor, who's there to watch the rest, right? So probably to keep 7 kids, you would need at least 2 staff members, right?
There's like 4 12-year-olds can be there at the same time, like in addition to the 7?
No, it just
Okay.
means that up to 7 children, up to age 8 can be there. But what it really means is that any children under, age 8 and younger count towards the cap of 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, we'll ask, I don't know the $130 as conditioned by staff.
So moved.
Second.
All right, is there any discussion? All right, I assume you're ready to vote. Mr. Penzis, will you give us a roll call, please?
Ms. Bostic.
Yes.
Ms. Baker.
Yes.
Ms. Scurlock.
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook.
Yes.
Mr. Bruce.
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Towns.
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDC of 9.2 Is the applicant present? The applicant present for 574 South Highland Street?
Yeah, he was just here a second ago. And then there's somebody else.
574 South Highland.
Okay, we just want to make sure he was present.
That's the.
Okay. All right. Okay, are we ready for the staff report?
Sorry, hi, I'm Lucas Skinner with DPD. I'm filling in for Masan. So I'll go through this pretty quick, but again, this is BOA 2024-004, located at 574 South Highland. Two primary variances here to allow a smoke shop that does not meet the locational requirements of 2.6.3S, along with paragraph 4.9.8A to allow a billboard with another principal use on the same lot. So just to show briefly where the site is located, we're just on the south side of Walker, on the east side of Highland, just north of Southern Avenue, so in the University District. For zoning map, site is located zone CMU2, and again within the University District overlay, very primarily commercial area surrounding the site. Here is the 1,320-foot radius map per the use standards, that's section 2.6.3S, that we follow for smoke shops. Typically, we locate any places of worship, schools, parks, within this radius to identify if a smoke shop is allowed to be within, or at that location and what's located within that radius. So this map is showing several of those uses that are found within the radius. A few site photos. So fairly prominent site, again, at Walker and Highland. This shows both the principal structure of the building along with the billboard. Some aerial photos. Here's a survey of the site. Again, the billboard sort of attached on top of the principal building itself. Memphis 3.0 consistency analysis, it was found to be consistent. So in conclusion, briefly, this variance is for Whatever Inc. Smoke shops, which has been obviously within the community for many years, to be located on the site. They moved across Highland into this building and put in for their certificate of occupancy, which is when we found and did the radius map along with sort of finding of the billboard on the site. With that, we are recommending approval with conditions. And myself and Mr. Penzis and Mr. Ragsdale would be available for any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none. Is the applicant present? Okay. Okay, give your name and address.
My client is Whatever Inc. They're the tenant of the building, or currently the tenant. And for the past 10 months, they've been building out the space, pulling permits, A situation where regardless of who the tenant is, whether it's a smoke shop, whether it's anything else, no one can occupy that building and open. That's a big problem. And whatever, while it does lease copy on the billboard, the metal fence on site, it is there. We would prefer so one question is whether we have to comply with these conditions before opening. My biggest concern, and whatever's biggest concern, is opening for business. They've missed Christmas, and they've missed the first couple months of the year because of this. Trigger or potentially trigger, and I don't want to get into that before you all, a termination option. Parking for this building. We want to prevent overnight parking. We want to prevent loitering. We want to prevent unauthorized use. The parking is a major. Tonight, I would like that to be a part of the approval instead of a strict removal with no access. That entails, but there's no space and hasn't been any space between the sidewalk and this parking lot since the 1950s, lot will have to be reconfigured to accommodate at least a landscape buffer of the size of the aisle in this building to plant shrubs along Walker and Highland. I'm certainly okay with the visual effect of that, but that costs money. It's unexpected. Tenant that's unexpected. And again, if that all has to be done, that requires getting a landscape architect or some sort of engineer to redesign the parking layout to situation, which is relating to this billboard and the building losing all non-conforming status. The billboard and arguably the building have not been gone out of service. It has not had a tenant since Goodwill left in 2019. My biggest issue here, and Hal can opine on the facts related to the timing and everything a little more, but Goodwill went out of business in 2019. At that point, it was not an ordinance that a billboard was a principal use. And so there was no notice that after 300, or for the building, at that point, the building was not subject so that he can.
Before you leave, are there any questions for?
I have a question of staff.
I've got some for Hal, so you get something about the billboard, basically.
Okay. You can ask your question and then, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Here's my question for staff.
Despite, and it cannot share a principal use or be an accessory use to another principal use. And so, because the building arguably was not used, or the use was discontinued, that no other occupant can go into the building and lease the space and do business without the billboard coming down. And so that's, from my perspective, the main reason we're here outside of the distance issue. But as I understand it, it's in furtherance of the push to see non-conforming billboards taken down. And given the timing here, and I do not know of any notice being sent or any, or to Lamar, to this billboard or the owner, it seems a little unfair to get to this point with a recent ordinance change and no opportunity to cure. But that's the ordinance change that I'm talking about.
Okay, I'm a little bit familiar, I believe, with that amendment. I thought it was before 2021, but I could be wrong about that. I'm looking at another provision, though, in use. So it is a principal use in and of itself, different from the goodwill use. So,
yes.
Okay.
To further expand on the owner's position as to the change in use in his position. It never went completely dark or anything like that. I mean, there's a lot to this one.
Quick question. Ms. Baker, will you finish? Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Quick question on that. I know you mentioned regarding the conditions. I just kind of want to make sure I'm clear on your stance because there are 7 that are listed here. So are you in agreement with the removal after the lease agreement for the billboard on the premises, or are we just, is that a legal matter, a contractual matter? What is your stance on that?
As to the billboard, as to the billboard, whatever, the lessee does not have an interest. It wants to open for business.
Okay.
It could, the owner, I believe, would like to see the billboard given at least a horizon of 8 years, which is the term of the lease with the first term of whatever's lease with the landlord. But it's only concerned with that because it can't open because of its existence.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, I think a lot of the questions we have would have been for the owner of the property who did not get a chance to speak because, the tenant used up all the time. So.
Right. I guess.
We can ask him a question.
We can ask questions, right?
Our timeline is this. The Goodwill lease, our previous tenant, their lease terminated September 30th of 2019. The owners quickly sought to do some improvements to the started December 15th. They completed October of 2022. We executed the Whatever Smoke Shop lease January 24th of 2023. We do not concede that we abandoned the use. We think we are still a legal non-conforming use. We've been working on this property, seeking our next tenant continuously since Goodwill left. That being said, we would propose this, or we would be open to this. That the current billboard lease be allowed to expire with Whatever Smoke Shop's lease. That would take into account the fact that when we negotiated the Whatever lease, we were taking into consideration the income we would get from the billboard. Allowing this to sunset at the same time as the Whatever Shop gives us another opportunity to renegotiate their lease or sign up with a new tenant in light of the fact that we will no longer have the billboard income. And I think that's a real fair resolution. We would be giving up our opposition to the fact that we're legal non-conforming. The city gets to see another billboard sunset. Whatever gets to move in and keep their advertising there. It's really a win-win-win all the way around. And I see sometimes I don't get everybody. You're not able to make everybody happy, and this one you would. So that's what we would propose if you don't buy my argument, if you don't find it persuasive that we are still a legal non-conforming lot.
Okay.
And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? We have several. We'll start with them.
Hal, when does the current term and any options for the billboard lease expire right now?
The current billboard lease is a year to year.
And what month?
I think we signed that in April of 2016. The lease is a bit confusing. I do have a copy of it, and it says it's terminable on 60 days' notice. We read that to mean 60 days prior to the end of the then current term.
Gotcha. Thank you.
It would run until April of next year, I believe.
Okay. Ms. Baker, you had a question?
Well, I think it was the same question. I think I had the same question that you answered. So in other words, I think what you said in your previous presentation was that when that year time expires, then we could expect the billboard to come down.
Well, no, what we would ask is that we're able to extend the billboard lease so that it terminates with the whatever smoke shop lease. That's in November of 2032.
November 21?
2032.
Another 8
We're asking for an
month, 13 months from now, you'll take the sign down. You're saying you want it to go to
Yes,
potentially
we
2032.
we would like that condition altered.
I see.
We'd like it removed completely, but, you know, if that's not the case, we'd like it altered, allowing the lease to sunset with the whatever lease.
I got another question. How is the base term for whatever 8 years, or is that including some sort of options?
That's the initial term. They do have options to extend, but those are landlord and tenant, they have to be approved. It has to be mutual.
So the base term goes to 2032?
That's correct.
Okay.
So if the billboard is not there, how would that affect the relationship with the tenant?
Well, it wouldn't.
Lease with the billboard, whoever's using the billboard. So
That's correct. That's correct. The tenant has really nothing to do other than they currently advertise on that billboard.
Okay. Okay.
But we'd be losing that billboard income if we, you know, obviously we have to take the billboard down.
Right. Okay.
And if some variant
for us?
So based on the UDC, we applied that billboards will no longer. Mentioned it's in 13 months.
So let me ask this question too. So being that they want to sunset it to the end of the lease term what is your thoughts on that? Or what, do you have an objection to that and why?
To the time that they mentioned, 2032, I guess?
Yes.
Okay. So as it was mentioned in the staff report, if there is a billboard on the site, they cannot have another use based on the code and everything that was explained in the report. So if they need to keep the billboard, they won't be able to proceed with whatever. And in case they want to bring whatever, they have to remove that.
So my question though is if we provide a sunset, and I said we give them a sunset to have it removed by the end of that term, is that an issue? I mean, because it's basically we're giving them a variance of using it, but we're cutting them off, or they have to come back. Is there a way to do that?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
We definitely want the billboard gone as soon as possible because it is a non-conforming use.
Okay.
So that's why we went with the.
And so prior to Goodwill terminating or their lease expiring, did they use the bill? I know it was prior to
I believe our code says 365 days of ceasing operations. So if it had been before that, it would have kept its legal.
And it did go dark more than 365 days, so I think, but you got two different things working here, I
It's a
think.
complex issue to think about, if we didn't abandon, then we didn't lose our legal non-conforming use. But
Yeah, I
appreciate
just
what you're
think that
saying.
you would still be in the trick bag because of the change in the
Because
principal
of the
use.
change of the
Yes.
use.
Yes.
Well, again, I propose a great resolution would be let this billboard sunset with the whatever shop lease. Y'all get rid of the billboard. We get to renegotiate, knowing we're not going to have a billboard. Whatever gets to move in, and we all go home happy tonight. That's what I would propose.
Are there any other questions of the applicant and/or staff? Okay, at this time.
Consider that when negotiating with whatever. It's a year-to-year lease. I would be, I get their point also. The fence is up there currently because people would park their cars there. Again, it's a college bar strip. People park their cars there, leave their cars there. They have to be towed. It's a nuisance for the tenant more than it is for the landlord because they're the ones taking care of that.
Okay, so are you proposing, from your perspective, a little bit more time on the sunset on the billboard and then allowing them to not necessarily remove the fencing, but maybe improve it or something?
I almost think we're looking at it on Google Earth just a second ago. There's, the portions in between the aprons, there are bullards there that are kind of keeping people from coming on the parking stops. Maybe if you took those out and just kept the gates that were there on the aprons, where they could close those at night. Again, I want everybody's opinion, but I'm just trying to find a creative solution where the landlord could have a tenant in their building and not sit there with a vacant building, which we don't want.
Correct.
And have income from a billboard.
Any other thoughts?
Well, I have a question for staff. On the landscaping that's required, are you just requiring that as a condition of our staff report? Is there something in the ordinance? I thought additional landscaping was required when the building was expanded, or am I wrong about that? It could be something even in the university district overlay. I'm just not sure. Why the
I don't
landscaping?
believe they proposed any addition to the building or anything like that.
Excuse me?
The condition about landscaping was essentially solely related to the fact that they needed a variance to try and comply more with the university district overlay.
Okay, so in other words, it was an opportunity to get the landscaping that if you passed it up, you wouldn't get another chance, probably.
Yes.
Got it.
For staff on the question about fencing, the conditions that they remove the fence,
I agree. My issue with the site plan landscape, and I understand the university overlay and the development, but that specific site, those couple of sites right there at the train track, a little different from the university overlay and building. It's a lot of money just for the train to still be the main. With whatever modifications or removal of the language of number 4.
I should have asked the landlord what they thought about the landscaping. I know the tenant doesn't want it, but it's the landlord's responsibility, and that's a question I meant to ask.
So, so looking at number 1, we have to make a determination on a time frame. I'm not opposed to the 36 months. I think that's well enough time to give them time to plan. I don't think it infringes too much on, it looks like leases that are going back and forth. The expectations of the landowner. I think it gives everybody enough time to plan, if we will, to get it cleaned up or be conformed or whatever we need to do for that. What is everybody's thought on that?
Yeah, I think that, with the sign, I think the objective is the sign needs to be gone.
Right.
Okay, like Mary said, we want to comply with the rules in place,
Right.
the rules in place. And so it needs to be gone. The question is, how much leeway do we give the landowner to remove it? Do we make them remove it right now, or can we give them 36 months? I'm okay with the 36 months. And if I can go through, the other 2 points that the applicants questioned, point number 3, sounds like with the amendment, the staff talked
conditions 4 and looks like 5 as well. Okay.
It was done before the right-of-way improvements were done in that area.
Gotcha. So we'll just say number 4 is just providing a revised
final
site plan.
And just remove the word with landscaping, because that's about a revised site plan after the removal of the billboard, which we will need.
Okay.
But we could go to number 4 and delete the words with landscaping and then everything after the word approved.
Everything after the word what?
After the word, so it would read a site plan, number 4 would now read a site plan shall be submitted for administrative review and approval. And that's essentially just to update the current site plan to show the curb cuts that no longer exist.
Okay. All right. And what about number 5?
Number 5, we can just delete the words with landscaping. So we'll just say a revised site plan shall be submitted for administrative review and approval after the removal of the billboard.
Yes, sir. And number 6? There's a non-conforming off.
Number 6 can say, except there's an extra apostrophe in the word it's that doesn't need to be there.
Okay. And number 7.
Number 7 can stay. And then if you want me to read number 3 again,
yes,
the language
please.
was the deteriorated metal fence on site, if still existing, must be removed, comma, repaired, comma, or replaced with a fence of high-quality material subject to administrative review and approval. Mr. Bruce.
Yes.
Mr. Clayburg.
Yes.
Ms. Gerlach.
Yes.
Chair Savage Jones.
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDC are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Secretary, can you call our next case, please, sir?
Let's see. This one. I see. One.
Item number 14, BOA 2024-0007 at 4710 Walnut Grove Road.
Okay, is the applicant present? So the applicant, is any opposition here? There is opposition, okay, thank you. If we could get a staff report, please.
For case BOA 2024-0007. The applicant is Second Baptist Church, Reverend Stephen Cook. The location is 4014710 Walnut Grove. information about the functionality of this project. Some of the features, though, that I want to highlight here are the flexibility for various gathering spaces, flex work options, play area. And then meetings as well. Here is an elevation image. Here's a couple of renderings. So Memphis 3.0, which is our long-range comprehensive plan for the city, they did look at this site, and I'm basically going to go over to the kind of the slam dunk here on point number. Zoning notes and existing adjacent land use and zoning. Based upon this information provided, the proposed project is consistent with the Memphis 3.0 comprehensive plan. The conclusions that the staff arrived to based upon this application is necessary to advance the mission of Second Baptist Church through community gathering and services that is centrally located in the city of Memphis. Impair the intent and purpose of an adopted plan or the Unified Development Code, nor will it be injurious to the neighborhood or the general welfare, and it will be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the UDC. The staff does recommend approval with the following conditions. Number one, any change or deviation from the site plan upon the determination of the zoning administrator administrative site plan review application. And this concludes my staff report.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions for staff at this point? Thank you. If the applicant will come forward. If you'll give your name and addresses for the record.
have us along Walnut Grove Road. And therefore, we respectfully request your consideration of this variance to the setback.
Are there any questions for Pastor?
I felt really lucky to be a part of it. We've lived here for 12 years, and when we talked about having this Good Grief Center in our neighborhood, I just could not think of anything that was more suitable for where we are. If you know anything about this part of Memphis, we have St. Mary's across the street. We have St. Dominic and St. Agnes just at the end of the block. We also have White Station High School across the street on what we call Baby Perkins. And then we have White Station Elementary and Avon School, which is a special needs school that is on Avon Road. So surrounding this particular location, there are a lot of academic institutions that are serving the children of Memphis. And when we talked about having this community gathering space with a cafe and a place to meet, I just thought that I can't think of anything that we need more for our kids and for our neighborhood than this kind of space. So taking my civil engineer hat off, and I'd be happy to answer any of those questions too, I did want to talk to you just as a resident and as a parent of this area about how important I feel like this project could be for us. I appreciated the residential scale of the building that was promoted at 14 feet high. It was not going to be taller than any of the roof lines for any of the homes around us, and it's obviously going to be substantially smaller than the churches. There's also two athletic fields behind where this is going to be situated. There's a soccer field, and then behind that is actually St. Mary's lacrosse field. The one thing that I noticed when I thought about the location of this building was that it was going to offer, I thought, some much needed screening for the kids that are playing on these fields from Walnut Grove. So right now, you have that soccer field that is almost adjacent to Walnut Grove Road. It is separated by only a small hedge. And so although this project is going to take up part of that soccer field, it is going to offer some much needed screening for all of the children that are playing on those fields behind it. Part of the reason why we wanted to situate just this along the road was also to preserve those athletic fields. If you live in this area, you know there are kids out there playing on these fields all the time. The soccer field houses a lot of small children. They have a lot of individual soccer practices. They have church leagues that play there. And then all of the girls at St. Mary's practice on the lacrosse field, even though we now have a turf field across the street as well. So the other thing that I really appreciated was that where this building is located, that we were going to be able to preserve the tree canopy. That is the character of Walnut Grove, is these big, beautiful trees that line the street. And by not putting it in the parking lot or not putting it out back, we were going to be able to preserve that tree canopy, which as someone who lives here, I thought was just very important to maintaining the character of our neighborhood. So that is it. I will save the rest of the time for their rebuttal, unless you have any questions for me.
Are there any questions?
I'm gonna, maybe this will be better for later, but I know we on a previous
Yeah, as far as the ones that we recently put in. Yeah. I got some questions about the site because I couldn't really see as much as I wanted to on the site plan. What's the depth of the actual building itself, like,
It's 50 feet from the right-of-way, which is in keeping with the other residences.
and then the building, the actual, like, the
Oh,
body?
the depth of
Yeah, yeah, the actual building, how deep is the building?
It's also about 50 feet.
Okay. And then why are we just really trying to preserve that field? Are we really wanting to push it up for the visibility? Tell me why we aren't just doing 200 feet.
Well, there are a few reasons. Yes, as it's a community building, it should have a presence on the street. We do think it's important for it to be protective of the soccer fields, but it's also really important to preserve those fields for their use and for leases that the church has with some of the nearby schools and churches as well.
Any other questions? Okay, we're going to move to the opposition, and then we'll come back to you guys for rebuttal. And we have some time left on that as well. So I have a few letters of or a few oppositions right here. Do y'all have an order you want to come speak in, or do you want me just to call a name? Got one volunteer. If you'll give your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sir. Napoleon Overton, 4695 Walnut Grove Road.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, sir?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
So do we have 10 minutes cumulatively for all of us?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll be brief. We sent a letter of opposition to the board. May I presume that each of you have had a chance to read that?
I believe so. Was that in our packet? The one?
Not necessarily.
Let's see.
Key points. The key points that we made were that there seems to be, and my initial gut feel when I heard about this, I guess 3 weeks ago or so, maybe 4, when we got the notice of this hearing in the mail, there seems to be a significant commercial element to this proposed development. There's a cafe in it, a coffee shop. There will be bakery items sold, sandwiches sold there. So there's kind of a restaurant cafe element. There's office space that will be leased to other people. That's commercial. And there's an auditorium, which can be used for a variety of purposes. I believe speakers and music are 2 of the possible purposes for that. And so it seems a bit commercial for a residential corridor. Walnut Grove. And look, I have to acknowledge something. I'm particularly sensitive to this one because, like, directly across the street those letters are also will serve as barriers to errant vehicles traveling down Walnut Grove in case one of them gets off the street, to protect people at this building. It seems to me that the need for such barriers is kind of self-indicative that maybe it is planned too close. They're trying to do here. I am 100% against the specific location of it, the design of it. I was hoping that they might use a residential kind of construction design rather than commercial, but they didn't. So let me stop there and let my neighbor.
day and say, we're going to do the exact same thing for a civic organization, for a civic build on the Walnut Grove or other streets similar to this. There's a reason why this 200-foot ordinance is in place. This is a policy that's in place today. And there's a reason why it's in place. So we don't have commercial buildings.
Does it really fit the culture of the neighborhood? There's a lot of space, has been previously mentioned, but at the same time, we do believe that the culture changes the neighborhood a little bit as far as trying to, what it does with construction and everything and being that close to Walnut Grove. We totally respect the mission, objectives, and calling of Second Baptist to move this project forward. We did not places and certainly the precedent that they might set. But, we would certainly ask for your consideration to at least delay the project or a moratorium or a hold to possibly let collaboration, consideration, a seat at the table take place. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Mr. Lawrence? All right. And I have one more card from Kit Mays. You'll give your name and address for the record.
My name is Kit Mays, and I live at 4715 Walnut Grove Road, directly across the street.
Right. And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. To try to come to some agreement when we found out, what was going on, just to get some information on the advice of staff planner, Mr. Howell, and we really did not come to any kind of agreement. Our fundamental thing was being sort of startled by the whole program. Of course, we're for the community. We are part of the community. We are the closest part of the community to the project. And Ms. Wilson made it very clear that they want to include the neighborhood in this. And but the difficulty is we have not really talked to the rest of the neighbors. Cook, we had very little response. We did not have any kind of effectual response. When Ms. Wilson, who is the chairman, sent us a text, it was a declaration, not a discussion. It did not seem like, and it did not seem that there was one that was available to us. We are not opposed to the church or its mission. We are not opposed to counseling. We're not opposed to the community coming together, but we are part of the community and feel that we should have been and should be part of the process. This was given to us as a done deal. When we found out about it, there was no Dr. Cook, Ms. Wilson are each other who should come here today.
We're out of time.
Sir?
We're out of the time.
I beg your pardon.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
So but are there any questions for Mr. Mazda?
Thank you so much for your patience.
Yeah, thank you. All right, if the applicant wants to come up to do any rebuttal. How much?
6 minutes and 50 seconds.
6 minutes and 50 seconds for rebuttal. I'm sure we'll have some questions too, so.
I don't know that we have any particular rebuttal that we would wish to make, other than to say that we are very grateful for the recognition and the affirmation of the spirit of the project and the understanding that this is a question of location. And we appreciate very much our neighbors acknowledging the goodness of the spirit of what we are endeavoring to do as a church.
Okay. I got a couple questions. Mr. Howell, can you go to the, I guess it's maybe the black and white survey that has the purple on it? I think it's keep going up. It's easier to see, I think, on, at least on my staff report. It's page 9 on my staff report, if that helps. So the question has to do with, there's several access easements on the property. Can you tell me about those? Like, I know you can't really see what I'm doing. It looks like, are they related to the cell tower? Like, is there like some sort of bubble around that?
There is an easement that runs from, there is an entrance to that easement from the parking lot of Second Baptist Church that runs to the cell phone tower.
Okay.
That is on the east side of the property. There's no easement access from the, if you were coming from the west, on the Independent Presbyterian side.
Yeah. But is there like, so I see that, and y'all, in like, when I'm looking at these easements, I wish
survey, the topographic
Page
survey.
9.
Yeah, like the topographic
Survey.
survey would probably be maybe what we're going to call it. And it's just like I can't read it that well, even when I zoom in. And so,
As we understand it, there used to be a circle drive.
when nothing else is that close to the street, and it's, I know you don't want to get rid of any other trees anywhere, and you want to keep the
That we're proposing is very much in keeping with the residential neighbors along the street, and there are even some that go further up toward the street.
have something you like, you want to say something? Yeah, you can ask staff.
I have a question for staff, and this is a process question. When I saw this, I thought, well, I thought churches were permitted in residential corridor because they're permitted in residential districts.
Date in the code, which I think is just the UDC was adopted in 2010.
But it's there by right, isn't it? It's not there by a previous variance, is it?
Correct.
So why would it necessarily come to us?
The corridor came after the church was established.
But I don't, okay. Well, I don't necessarily want to debate it or anything, but within the residential corridor regulations,
the site.
Okay.
But another thing about it is, it's important because a special use permit has a longer process. You know this. They have to go file an application, there's a time, space, then they go to Land Use Control Board, there's a time, space, then they go to the Memphis City Council, and so on. And so it's a lot longer process. The neighbors get more time to organize and et cetera. And so, it almost at least supports the idea that more time should be taken for discussion with the neighbors. And in particular, discussion of maybe this thing can be set back a little bit further.
Putting it in another place on your property. You've got a large property, you got plenty of places to put it. I'm sure you've thought about placing it other way, or have you thought about putting it somewhere else?
The idea behind this is that we recognize that there's some 39,000 cars that pass in front of our church property every 24 hours.
The soccer fields were very, very important because of the existing leases, but also if you look at the site plan over here, you'll notice that the soccer fields also serve as a drainage area. So pushing the building back could interrupt existing drainage on the site. Thought we had submitted a more detailed site plan, and I'm not sure what happened in the submission.
Thank you.
beautify that a little bit with some different landscaping or something, but that seems a little more appealable, but like, I don't know if we can say an probably past, getting closer to Yates and stuff like that. But in that area, I don't know how far these gentlemen's houses are, but they're not 50 feet. They're a lot further than mine at 75 feet, So I just think it needs to fit a little bit more contextually into everything else. That's my thought. Any other thoughts on that? And I'm saying this now so you're able to talk back. We didn't go to discussion yet.
Well, I just want to say that I agree with that completely. And the benefit of that, too, is to give it a chance for everybody to talk together, you and the neighbors and everything, and come to an agreement, something that everybody can be happy about and support. So just that extra time and
Second,
All right, is there any discussion?
I think that was a good recommendation.
All right, well, we're going to vote real quick. We'll do a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. All right, look forward to hearing from you hopefully next month and get this put to bed. All right, are there any other cases today or announcements?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, with that.